It will be as if they were doing good when they betray you for thinking there is one God through his voice that created a flat earth nation with its golden age past. Killing you will be like shooting a wounded horse to them in bondage to the will of the mob, to the will of the mafia, possessed by Satan or the minions thereof. Welcome, everybody, to Mud Flood was Armageddon. Mud Flood was Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they're willing to debate you in a fair and honest way, and that means no fisticuffs. Welcome, everyone. Now, the last time I had anything online, I think I waited and I listened to Sergio's. And if there was ever a person more shadow banned than me, it's Sergio. Sergio, you should have over 400 subscribers right now. And this is insanity. It's injustice. I'm not going to put up with it. 1 minute. What am I really going to do about it? I got some pictures pulled up. I have not been just contemplating my navel. That's not the one. I'm going to close these down and start. Well, let's look at here. That's the brain. It's all lit up. These are connections. I guess that's where we're going. Could think of the brain's ability to form new neural connections. Oh, I hope I'm sharing, because that's a direct contradiction to some other people who use my material and twist it into a way of where they don't want people to take psilocybin mushrooms. When every peer reviewed properly science indicates that it's the best hope for post traumatic stress syndrome or people suffering from depression or anything else. But oh no, we've got a guy talking about the Nephilim could be clowns, and a, a spirit Nephilim warned him taking mushrooms, don't ever take them again. They're bad for you. And by the way, Nephilim were clowns. I promise you, that's the way that whole thing went down. Dooby doo, down, down, coma, coma, down, dooby doo, down, down. Breaking up with the world is hard to do. Not everyone wants to cook and eat your children, but some people do. This guy just got in the newspaper. And not only that, they're so sick and twisted. People like him. I know there's not very many, thank God. The mobs, the molester, Nathaniel Barjona, would cook children and feed them to the neighbors and laugh and giggle like a little schoolgirl. In the meantime, nothing has changed since the Great Enlightenment. The Renaissance, where they were preaching egalitarian, fraternity, liberty. Dang, these guys ain't rich. This is all a lie. There is only the 0.5%, maybe a 10%, and then you know 90% basically is what I'm saying. Paying the bill. Oh my goodness. And we've been set up. This whole thing goes back to 9/11, the debt crisis, how they admit they set it up. They use the stock market. And if you're into the stock market, oh man, you're wrong place, wrong time. Oh, it does look like they've set you up again. Yeah, you didn't have a chance, and it's only gotten worse. The Federal Reserve ended up encouraging a housing bubble. Fed says the housing market is solid, but others says there was reason for caution, but they didn't care. There's a bigger plan going on. Ooh, that whole 9/11 thing and the bubble collapsed. And they didn't even mention how, the Clintons in these years leading up to this crisis, the Soviet Union fell. So they slashed the military and said they had a balanced budget and invested all of their money in the internet. In the meantime, that bubble looked so good, everybody just said, I could buy a house for free because property never goes down. Don't you just feel like that Looney Tunes music should be playing there? There's the outline of the plane. It's like the Wile E. Coyote smacked into it and left an imprint. Bubbles are breaking again. Hey, what'd this say? 9/24/96. I recognize, this is the chairman, that there is a stock market bubble problem at this point. And I agree with Governor Lindsay that this is a problem we should keep an eye on. Mr. Fisher, to put the market's reaction in a nutshell, I think the market is focusing on the question of whether the politicians can pull a rabbit out of a hat. They wanted it to crash like they want it to crash now. The central bank, I found out recently that the creature from Jekyll Island, they built the house on a blood sacrifice altar. In this whole congressional act back then of the quantitative easing, the TARP, the too big to fail, it had to be too big to fail because they needed them so we could go through, so we could wait it out for the 50-year contract to end. You see, the Saudi Arabians had a 50-year contract where, we had to prop up the United States dollar. I guess the United States thought they would renew it. They did not. They're going with the BRICS. And you're going to hit the brick line curb. It's like the 1913, that's what it was set up for. They faked it all until they could get this. And oh, doesn't she look nice? She'd never cook and eat your children. She's a Rosicrucian. She's the Grand Master Julie Scott. Julie Scott. Cosmic consciousness permeates the entire universe. Oh, it turns out that a lot of other people have wondered the same thing. Huh. Maybe we'll look into some Rosicrucians. Is this a governor's assistant? Office of the governor. And again, wearing it. What did I point out with that? I think she's a judge from Texas. They're wearing uniforms now when they appear at these. It looks like it, doggone if it doesn't look like a Star Wars Jedi enemies uniform. The brain, I guess that's where we started here. Magic mushrooms may reset the brains of depressed patients. I'm not making this up. I'm only wondering why some monkey boy is out there drinking pop with and having a autoimmune disease, which I promise, I think, and I'm not a doctor, but in my own quack world, There's ways you can get rid of those if you want to take care of yourself. And to think that you should be teaching that a kind demonic spirit on a mushroom trip told you, don't do any more mushrooms, you're doing them too much, man, and study clowns, they could be demons, and tell other people from now on, don't do psilocybes. Well, I'm telling you that I wouldn't be in on it if I didn't think it was for your good. I know that some patients taking psilocybin to treat depression show reduced symptoms weeks after treatments following a reset of their brain activity. I'm going to go over that, how that works. You saw the title. You're allowed 100 letters on the title. I used them all. The findings come from a study in which researchers from Imperial College London used mushrooms and the psychoactive compound inside them, psilocybin, that occurs naturally in mushrooms to treat a small number of patients with depression because, they don't want everybody feeling good. They still got the lobotomy waiting in the background. Hallucinogenic drug found in mushrooms erases depression, anxiety in people with life-threatening cancer. How about that? 80% is not enough. 80% is not enough. And 60% showing symptom remission back into normal range? What? It's almost as if there's a force working against what Paco thinks could be one of the best things. Not for everyone, though, but for some people. Who knows more about your brain in my quack world? Oh, they do. They study the brain. They'll cook and eat children, I guess. Because these old guys like young girls. And young girls say, "What? I'm going to put a birdcage on my head? What's in it for me?" It's these Rockefellers, Illuminati people. I'm telling you, man, they built Rockefeller's cottage on Jekyll Island on top of a place the lost tribes of Israel, probably, or maybe even Moabites or something, but they were 8.5 foot tall, documented, killed them with poisons so they could build this, what we got going here. These people are actually named and numbered, a party from 1972. I want to recommend that video from the End Time Productions there. You might recognize the thumbnail. I cut her eye in half because that's all the demonic stuff. They're full of it, right? Yikesity doodah. What? That's a mask? That's a hat? Or is it Photoshop? I think it's a mixture of both. Hey, these are real diamonds, I understand. Even the Moosehead girl. He's saying, thank you, Marina. You've certainly got the spirit cooking down. And don't worry, Hillary's not going to get any trouble for going to your spirit cooking parties. Everything is working out exactly like we've been planned. Yeah, these are real diamonds. That's a real girl. She had a real party and he had a good time. I'll bet. I'll bet. Huh. This is the tables for that party in 72. Reminds me. Huh. Weird. What's this? Oh, this is somebody that said, don't listen to this crazy stuff. I don't know where this came from, but maybe I have it still pulled up. But if you want to do a screenshot, there you go. I don't know. Where's the Bible? The Bible is what we need. We need the Lord Jesus Christ more than ever. So that's okay. We're done with that. I've got a few tabs pulled up. Let's see. So we got this pulled up. Darker skies. Oh, here's the. Did we talk about this already? That geoengineering trick to cool brutal heat could spike temperature elsewhere. Scientists say that's scary. So this is from June 22nd. That would be a couple days ago. Guardian reports scientists have suggested spraying aerosols into clouds over oceans to cool down the surface below, a practice called marine cloud brightening. So if you look up chemtrails, you're going to be, laughed out of the room. I think maybe you should try marine cloud brightening. It used to be, you used to sneak into it by looking up upper atmosphere aerosols. That may still work. I'm going to try to sound a little more manly today. How am I doing? Because old guys tend to lose their gravitas from what I've been told. In other words, while it may work now, given worsening conditions, that equation may flip on its head by the year 2050. Huh. So in the meantime, they think and they should just keep doing it until then, because that marine cloud brightening can be very effective for the United States West Coast if done now, but it may be ineffective there in the future. You create an emergency, right? So don't worry. They got the computer models from 2010 to 2050. Come on, man, it's all good. Looks like we're going to be coming back to Ecclesiastes 5. The main thing to take away here for now is don't let your mouth cause your flesh to sin. And do not tell the angel. It took me forever to slide that over. That don't tell the angel that your vow is a mistake. Why would God be angry with your words and destroy the works of your hands? For as many dreams bring futility, so do many words. Therefore, fear God. What's, you know, Hebrew, right? Sometimes you wish it was in Aramaic, so that this messenger of God, you know, 22 occurrences. They go with messenger. There's an angel. He saw the angel that smote. Hmm. Hmm. Another angel up here. Same angel stretched out his hand to destroy. Wow. Okay. So this is, we could be leaning towards, we should be thinking angel, presence of the messenger. Okay. Well, hey, that's what we were looking at. Zechariah answered the angel. Okay, it's an angel. Got it. Sometimes things like that are good too, no, but we're also going to look at John, this I and the Father are one. I think we're looking at this with Sergio. I just left it up. I and the Father are one. For you who habla English, let me translate. That means Jesus and the Father are one. Let's had this pulled up. Elijah back then, he will turn the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of their children to their fathers. They should. Least I come and strike the land with a decree of utter destruction. Well, I guess they didn't because they got utterly destroyed. Wow. That's too bad. Because, I mean, the next chapter is like, that's the way a desperate plea. You want to see another, it's kind of like, yeah, so this is going down, huh? So this is really happening, huh? And eventually you're going to rescue us as if, unless you have utterly rejected us and you remain exceedingly angry with us. That's how you end a book in Lamentations when you're lamentating. It doesn't mean, that his mercies aren't new or that his throne endures for all generation. People know it. There's going to be a remnant. There always is. Narrow road. I think, this is getting a lot of traction, right? Around the whole mud flood world. This is the Pastor Will Duffy this December being brought up 6 months later because maybe they like the flat earth for a different reason. I think it's how they bread and butter it, but not Will. Pastor Will.
Lose any interest whatsoever in ever reading the Bible or taking it seriously.
Why?
Are told by Christians that the Bible teaches a flat earth, that will all but guarantee they will lose any interest whatsoever in ever reading the Bible or taking it seriously. This is something that must be dealt with now before it gets out of hand. And at AKF,
6 months ago.
we are a small church that likes to do big things. So we are facing this head on, and stay tuned as
we were busy 6 months ago. We had a new preacher preaching flat earth nation and golden age past. And then he went into the King James only. And then he got a vision that he was going to take a boat to the North Pole. Kelly was on board, and so was Noel from that other channel, but they don't talk anymore. But they are still out there 6 months later because this urgency, flat earth. I've learned that the golden age is past. I've got to go to the North Pole. And when I said, they'll kill you, you'll never make it. This is a joke. You'll look at the logistics and realize who's going to feed your goats. And I was mocked and condemned as a naysayer. And I'd do it again.
Next week, we will be providing irrefutable evidence that we live on a globe, and coming in 2024, we are working on something massive, which we think will finally put this flat earth idea to bed for good.
Yeah. And so the normal people go through the normal motions as they do on We Are the Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, reliable flat earth thing. Well, does Professor Will come back in here and lay down more of a challenge, or is this more of the proof that things that we already know?
Essentially being afraid of being associated with the same cosmological view that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob held. My next question is, well, what are you afraid of being labeled an anti-vaxxer? Are you afraid of Christians being associated with? I mean, think of all the pejoratives that are now being leveled against Christians and conservatives in the media and by the federal government. When the president goes before the world and is talking about white supremacists and the mega extremists, and it's like
Pizzagate. Remember when they used to talk about that QAnon and Pizzagate all the time? Remember when there were 3,000 people? 3,000 people had subpoenas and they were all going to be arrested at any moment. They were waiting for the right optics, for the right time. It was never going to happen. It was never going to happen. couple more. Un momento.
A lot of this dispensationalist programming. So not to get too into that, but that's, I think, my next video. But what I keep coming across is that, like, if you believe in a if you believe what the Bible says about the judgment at the end of history, that there will be a new heavens and a new earth, then in reality, arguing about like the current heavens and earth and what the shape is and how to it's like it all really does kind of become moot when you really step back and look at it. Like it's
I could not disagree more. I think if you're not going to take a stand on that the Bible teaches it's a flat earth book, you're not really going to take a stand on very much. What am I reading here? Am I reading the messages or do I have this pulled up to share? Oh, this is Paul reading a book. This is a guy that he doesn't like mushrooms one bit because he was warned off them by a demon while he was taking mushrooms and told him, you should look into that. The clowns are Nephilim. This is what we get here, kind of. There's also a short story about the giants and the flood and a boy in our time. The giant was born different from the others. His mother was shamed from the village and struggled to feed her Nephilim son because he was so big. He was bullied and abused because he was a giant. Then came a day when he became stronger and more violent. He was turned evil because something happened to his mother. I think she dies. I'm not sure. But then a flood happens and it starts to rain, a dark, what? It just opens the door to nonsense. And it just opens the, have you heard about the deepest hole dug in the earth? Have you heard about the giant in Kandahar? Did you know that Michael Heiser? Oh, wow. That is not golden age past theology. And it's so let's just hear this part. And this is making his living teaching the Bible. Now, selling this book that clown-like entities were roaming the earth, and that's who Goliath was. A clown-like entity that King David must have just been super blessed because otherwise, he could have demon possessed him or whatever demon gods do.
I mean, his reins are not troubled by his word of judgment that has gone forth upon them, because of those who have thus led them out. And it came to pass, when he stood before the Lord of Spirits, Michael said thus to Raphael, I will not take their part under the eye of the Lord, for the Lord of Spirits has been angry with them, because they do as if they were the Lord. To paraphrase what you just read into layman's terms, Michael said something akin to...
So you're selling a book based on the book of Enoch and the other apocryphal books, which the book of Enoch contradicts itself internally. It contradicts the scripture. It's never been taken serious except by people who want to somehow find some way to make money off of this, the same way that they do in the New Age movement. I'm drawing blanks trying to think of the David Icke and that type. So, but stop me if you haven't heard this one before.
To this quote, Raphael, what
He's
God
quoting. So he said, "I'm going to paraphrase this for you." Didn't he? So that's for I'm going to paraphrase what you just read, and now quote. I guess he's quoting back from the script. He's quoting from his book. Yeah, he wrote a book. People are going to have to buy it and support this theology. I don't think that's possible.
into layman's terms,
Biblically.
Michael said something akin to this. Quote, Raphael, what God just did to those watchers who mated with human women was absolutely terrifying. I am literally shaking at what I've just witnessed. I mean, can you imagine suffering in such a way? Who could handle that? There is
Again, this is all nonsense. And again, the Bible has watchers in it. They appear to be the good guys. They don't, and you can't just take the book of Enoch for granted. Oh, so the book of Enoch said they mated with these women. There they are. Why aren't they still doing it? Or never mind.
absolutely no way any angel would ever think of doing what the Watchers did ever again after witnessing the consequences for doing so. I wouldn't even dream of doing such a thing. They acted like God, and God put them in their place. Upon reading Michael's reaction to the severity of the punishment,
He wrote a book.
in the following 26 chapters, which will come. So today, like I said, I'm going to share with you chapter 9, which is the aftermath. So this is after the flood. Okay. I'm just going to read it to you. Please, like I said, remember this is
I think that the book came out this week.
first draft stuff.
Okay.
If you like what you read here and you want to help support with the book, links are down below. Of his father, and told his two brethren without. This early in the story, we don't yet know that the future nations of Canaan will be filled with Nephilim giants. Many tribes of fearsome giant warriors and kings with unique traits and varying degrees of sinful depravity. However, these passages are certainly hinting to its readers that something is different about Ham compared to his brothers. We are also being
All right. So 8 people were off the ark. Nephilim were the before and after the time of Genesis 6, verse 4. There were Anakin, Rephaim, King Og of Bashan. A lot of things happened after the flood. There were still, but they were never portrayed anywhere as demon possessing human people. That, like, oh my gosh, run for the hills. We're dead now. Here comes a demon possessed clown. Because Goliath certainly dressed like the rest of the Philistines. Let's move on. Let's hear what this part saved at.
Vanity. That God is testing them that they may see that they themselves are but beasts. For what happens to the children of man and what happens to the beasts is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath. And man has no advantage over the beasts, for all is vanity. All go to one place. All are from the dust, and to dust.
In my world, when the Bible also says, who's to say whether the soul of the beast goes up or down? Yeah, I think we should lean towards it goes up. And what they call beasts are all around, and we're all the same. We all have that same life, pneuma. And we're all from that same dust. God somehow has made sure some people are going to be able to hear his voice and he will be glorified. Let's find out a little bit about Sonia. They pronounce this kind of funny, I thought. I looked it up because even though we had a whole show and the Wichita people, there's this rock that they carved and looks like a cave patterns in it. It was such a good video. I just don't want to forget the Wichita Indians. And, these were the people that the video said they were 8.5 feet tall. I wonder if that'd be worth, well, we'll see if that video comes up. It was yesterday. Was that the first one I saw? These are all good videos that you should watch. This guy here, I wonder if I had that one pulled up. Well, here's that one. 6 confirmed tornadoes there.
So that was the purpose why they came in. We are also going to refer today to something called Cibola, which is known as the 7 cities of gold. So Coronado was the first conquistador who came to Kansas, and he took a westerly route through western Kansas and to the north and ended up in Lyons, Kansas. And that was in 1541. And while he was in Lyons, Kansas,
Where's that rock at, girly? I know she talks about it.
trails. The squiggly lines represent rivers. So for about 150 years, everybody tried to orient this map towards current terrain, and there simply was no current terrain that matched it. A lot of these
So they get into a little bit more history of it on the other one. And I do think I'll be able to find it, and you'll be blessed to see it. Look at that girl. Because it talks about how no doubt they were 8-footers. This one here, I should have played this one too. I'm going to open that back up. So wait, there's Sergio. So these are, I didn't watch that one on those before, did I? Maybe I did. Here it is.
Who would be crazy enough to build a bowl, and then they built a museum on top of it? They did basically the same thing with the museum that the Jekyll Island guys had done with their houses. They put a piece of plexiglass over the burial site so you could see it, but they were still trying to respect where the bones were and not move them. And so I'm looking at 4 skeletons of the Timucua chiefs. And they knew they were chiefs just from different things that were buried with them. So all of a sudden I look and I realize, man, these guys are really tall. And I commented to the guy that, you know, how tall.
Anyway, so this is the stone tower that Rockefeller built his house cottage over. Now, these people that the public had never heard this side of the story about lived on the island that they call Jekyll Island. And they were, I guess, super tall and did child sacrifice.
A lot of these guys, they look unusually large. And he said, yeah, they're all about 8 or 8.5 foot tall. And I thought, well, that doesn't seem like a normal Native American, especially the tribes that I'm familiar with. He said all the Timucuas were unusually tall, even the women. And he said we found other skeletons and parts of bones out in the grounds, and he said we've got pretty good evidence that nearly all of them were extraordinarily tall.
We don't have to look for demon-possessed, half-god people making people do bad things. Humans are bad. We've got this thing going that's like a contest. Be bad. So he brought it forward to today.
Rockefeller was. Okay. Can we go there? And he said, yeah, it's just a short walk. Come on. And we've actually, I'd already walked by it. So he said, I've got the keys. He said, normally nobody can go in. The way these things are set up, they're wrapped inside just like they were when they were actually being used back in the 20s and earlier. So we go over there, and he's got the keys, though. So we go into the house, and he takes me into the parlor, and he says, well, I know you're a praying guy, so you probably would like to have a little time to pray. He said, you're standing right on top of the altar right now. This is the room that is built on top of it. He said, I'm just going to go over here and sit down for a few minutes and read the newspaper, and I'll let you pray and do whatever you need to do. The room that they were sitting in when they drew up the entire.
Okay, now I know this guy's there like, my guy got the key. But he brought his entourage too?
The room that they were
I guess so.
sitting in when they drew up the entire legislation and plan to pass it that became the Federal Reserve Act. So this was the conception of.
He sounded like I'm shocked. Jekyll Island provides the unique experience for children. Rockefeller, Morgan, Pulitzer, and other well-known families come to the island to escape the North's cold winters. But for the children, it means several weeks of games, bicycling, and fun at the beach. Because it can get cold down there.
Not just a bunch of wealthy guys that got away for vacation and came up with a profitable business plan. This has got something diabolical, something occultic about it, something evil that's wrapped up with it.
Yeah.
And so even if it had been a good idea and something beneficial for the country, which many would argue that it was.
Yeah, they'd say, well, at least I got my family raised. And, people like Do Re Mi can say, well, I retired. I did my 14-hour days and paid off my house. I was able to retire at age 54. Those days are over for you guys. I am so sorry, but there's no coming back for the way they left it. And now I'm going to appeal to you from the scriptures presenting who you are. Oh, shoot. I still got tabs. Anyway, we covered that. And so it's just funny that these guys were giants and they got rubbed out, probably poisoned. Anyway. So how do you understand, you have afferent and efferent nerve fibers in your system? Well, these pictures might repeat a little bit, but, afferent means it's like moves, something moved on your skin and you can feel it. Efferent, something, I hear something. Sensory motor, your brain, your spinal cord. It's hard to explain how fearfully and wonderfully you're made. But just so that you know, in the peripheral nervous system, afferent nerves are part of the sensory nervous system and arise from outside of the central nervous system. Sensory and mixed nerves contain afferent fibers. Okay. Wow. Your sensory organs, your dendrites, your ganglia, and your dorsal root ganglions, which very well could be the key to your electric body. Dorsal column, medial lemniscus pathway. All right. I know you're excited now. These nerves cross over. Wow. In your brain. That's crazy. Huh. There it is. And see, these things, these pyramidal tracks, this part in here is all going to be floating in cholesterol, something that you should never listen to in my quack world, because I'm not a doctor, but I'll pretend like I know something. And that is because from what I've heard from other quack doctors is that cholesterol is very important for your brain to swim in. All of these thoracic, so important. Left side, right side. And you can find these in the rocks. It's so easy, dendrites. Anyway, there are three groupings of neurons that are involved in the pathway: first order, second order, and third order. Sensory neurons, dorsal root ganglia. Okay. Wow. And afferent fibers. It's all here. If life isn't teaching you, that, so this basically, special sonomic afferent fibers, different things, and like the rest of your body, they're being replaced all the time, around a spirit that really is you, and you're only using these type of things to respond to a test. You're being tested by God. And, efferent is a little bit more wordy in there. It's the axions of efferent neurons that exit a particular region. These terms have a slightly different meaning in the context of peripheral nervous system, but your central nervous system, and ladies and gentlemen, they're guessing. They're absolutely guessing. And I'm tired of giving them information, and they're, you know, basically the light and everything else. I don't think they know what the heck they're going or where this is leading to. All they know is they got a globe and they're going to stick to it. Look at that. That's a good picture. Did I have that one up? This part here. Cell of Doggel. It's not on the other side. Some of these cross over and go back. Now is not the time. So the electrical synapse of our body, recognize these? Recognize this as a fleur-de-lis? Recognize this, how your body opens up? Open, closed, open, closed. Look at that, little pyramids, crystals sliding on each other, and sometimes there's a hole in the middle. This is the membrane from the gap junction. Looks like the fleur-de-lis, but it's just something that fires at well, compared to chemical synapses, electrical synapses conduct nerve impulses faster, super fast. But unlike chemical synapses, they lack gain. You ever adjust a gain and notice it on a board, one of those boards, and they mix the music on? The fundamental basis for perceiving electrical synapses comes down to connexons that are located in the gap. Okay, there's the gap. Gap junction's not a theory, I guess. There is a gap junction located between the two neurons. You are electric battery. Did you know that? Well, at least that's what I've been telling you. Ed, you're a vortex spinning in infinity with analemma Mobius strips, breaking it down, firing on the chemical level. That's the way. We like it. You're a chemical activated battery. Somehow you got all these things doing all this work, and there's living things providing you this service. Pneuma, I guess you could call them little beasts that are living in you, feeding off of these chemical reactions. You can clearly see them with an electron microscope. And you know what? In a few years, it's probably going to be like a solar powered calculator. $1,000 one day, 10 years later, you get one free when you fill up your gasoline tank with premium gasoline. Dendrite spines. Somehow these are going to bring me back into the world of banking and derivatives, because that's how they did the whole Fannie Mae housing bubble crash. But I'm just doing catch up on all this stuff, because I didn't do a video yesterday, and I usually do 2 on the Lord's Day. Taste receptors. How do you taste? What tastes like a banana was brought up the other day by Do Re Mi. Taste receptor. It's a cellular receptor. Okay. So fast, but not gained, or gained, but not as fast. It facilitates I guess they have to call it a sensation of taste. I guess it's something that the AI has a hard choice of words. When food or other substance enter the mouth, molecules, chemically, interact with saliva and are bound to taste receptors in the oral cavity. That's your mouth. Yes, that's your mouth. Any other good pictures here? Look at that. Whatever that is. It looks like a seed. Everything must be a seed taste bud. Taste buds look. Yeah, this one's sneaking right in there, and hey, you have a sensation of taste from a chemical reaction. That's awesome. In addition to that, GPCR, as the biggest member of the membrane proteins that play a key role for signal transportation across the entire cell membrane, and they act as important drug targets. In the past several years, the computational 3D signature of GPCR have become a significant for drug recovery researches, especially when they help as extra templates for blood modeling studies. That's from 2010. Human sweet taste receptors. This is how long ago? 2010, and they're quoting this is a 2020, quoting a 2010 paper. And basically, I could swing down to the conclusion, but the basic is like, wow, we don't know it. And I got here because when they were talking about taste, there was this one footnote. Was that why I was on that footnote? Un momento. This is very important. Yes, I am reading it. Huh. I felt the need for some name to call the junction between nerve cell and nerve cell. I suggested syndism. He, Michael Foster, consulted his Trinity friend Baral, the Epirodean scholar. Euripides. Euripides is quoted in scripture. He told the truth about something, I think accidentally, when he said, there is a God, and in him we live and move and have our being. And when the apostle Paul was telling them about the unknown God, he was going like, yes, and it's him, that in him you don't even know what you're in it. And so there's that. But that's not what I was looking for. There was this one thing about how these had different electrical synapses, and I thought there was a claim in here that they worked differently on some different blood types. If I can't find it in the next 15 seconds, I'm going to move on. I knew I should have probably did a screenshot. 4, 3. All right. Anyway, this paper was supposed to prove somehow it quoted somewhere in that article, of that the blood tested different for blacks, Asians, and whites. So I read the article, and nowhere in this article does it say, unless it's hidden in here, that the stimulation has a different resonance or somehow. And I know it's funny that it was in a taste thing here. So anyway, this type of painting, somehow I'm interrupting it for this type of painting. Chiruzo. Light and dark mixture. Okay, what's going on here? So this is the famous painting that they need to put in the Wikipedia. What's going on here? Sacred and profane love, showing Chiarosco type of painting. Here's another example of it. Hans Holbein the Younger. Have you ever seen his crazy work? I'll move it here. They claim this is Hans. You're all familiar with his work because he's famous. Famous Ballistica of St. Paul. Look at that. Show me his famous work. There it is. So, The Ambassadors by Hans Holbein. If you just look at the picture, this must be quite the picture. So that's good because it means it's going to show a lot of detail. I've done lectures. I know you like to call them episodes or shows, but basically this is what? It didn't open. Anyway, it shows everything famous. And if you stand and look at this picture from a designated angle, this is really the picture of a skull. And there are a lot of hidden messages in there. Why didn't it open? It's too darn big. Look at it this way. Now, it's probably easier for you to believe that it looks like a skull from a certain angle. A lute, open to music. There's your compass, scroll. So I guess, or is that a musical pipes? Square, open to a certain page. Of course, they're selling the globe, and they're holding it here and looking at it upside down, or maybe they're, have this handle so they could hold it on a string or upside down. Everything up here is, so this is Hans Holbein. And I'm sure that there's a lot of different ways you look at these things with mirrors and you get different messages. Terrestrial glow of the stars. I'm sure these are all very expensive things. I'm looking for gang signs. Hands seem pretty not gang sign like. That's the famous Hans Holbein. Famous style. They say that's 1515. What? here it goes, PG-13. What Raphael, the angel painter named after, made bracelets, armlets with his own name on it? This is a detail. Black and white. The light comes from somewhere else. Here are the lights coming from the angels and the baby itself. Paul Rubens. Huh. I wonder what the idea of the focus there is. Wonder where, I wonder if that, if they're, are they throwing hand signs? So it's a real style. Huh. I guess they forgot to whitewash his history. So there's this other one, experiment with a bird. During the Industrial Revolution, the scientific advancements of the Enlightenment. First, we'll look at this is how they said, hey, look, children, we're going to put a bird into a cylinder and suck the air out. And this is what happens. It'll die. As the little girl's going like, say, what? You got to be kidding me. No, we're learning things here, child. We're learning things here. What? What's wrong with these people? Well, that's when you get these natural philosophers, during their enlightenment, their industrial revolution, to where they get their liberty, their fraternity, their toleration, and the progress that many people think is worth it today. It's led by rationalism. Thomas Jefferson liked it. Ben Franklin liked it. Rene Descartes and George Washington all liked it. It helped make the women get the vote. And it led us to being in debt. As a man came from his mother's womb, so he will depart again, naked as he arrived. He takes nothing for his labor to carry in his hands. This too is a grievous evil. Exactly as a man is born, so he will depart. What does he gain as he toils for the wind? Moreover, all his days he eats in darkness with much sorrow, sickness, and anger. Here says the prophet, here says the preacher, what I have seen. Verse 18 starts and then it continues. Here is what I have seen to be good and fitting, to eat and drink, to find satisfaction in all the labor one does under the sun during the few days of life that God has given him, for this is his lot. For furthermore, God has given riches and wealth to every man, and he has enabled him to enjoy them, to accept his lot, and to rejoice in his 6 days of labor. This is a gift of God. For a man seldom considers the days of his life, because God keeps him occupied with the joys of his heart. Now, during a time of warning about the end of all of these things, we should pay attention. When's the last time we read the whole chapter? I mean, it's such a big ending to a big finish. The advice from a man who lived a life at a time before the 600 wives or whatever, God gave him all the wisdom in the world to do and write these things for us. He's advising us Remember your Creator in the days of your youth before the days of adversity come. Okay, so we have all that. Hope you've enjoyed your good life and you're ready for what's coming. And the years approach of which you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the light of the sun, moon, and stars is darkened, and the clouds return after rain. On the day the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men stoop. When those grinders cease because they are few, and those watching through windows see dimly, when the doors to the street are shut, and the sound of the mill fades away, when one rises at the sound of a bird, and all the daughters of song grow faint, when men fear the heights, dangers of the road, when the almond tree blossoms, the grasshopper loses its spring, and the caper berry shrivels, for then man goes to his eternal home. Remember him before the silver cord is snapped, and the golden bowl is crushed, before the picture is shattered at the spring, and the wheel is broken at the wheel, the well, before the dust returns to the ground from which it came. Dust returns to the ground from which it came. Then the spirit returns to God who gave it. Futilities of futilities, says the teacher. Everything is futile. I guess he means the end has been written from the beginning. Not only was the teacher wise, but he also taught the people knowledge. He pondered, searched out, and arranged many proverbs. The teacher searched to find sayings delightful and to record accurate words of truth. The words of the wise are like goads, and the anthologies of the masters are like firmly embedded nails by a single shepherd. And by these, my son, be further warned, there is no end to the making of many books, and much study wearies the body. When all has been heard, the conclusion of the matter is this: fear God and keep his commandments, because this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, along with every hidden thing. For God will bring into judgment every deed, along with every supposedly hidden thing, whether good or evil, and we had better be ready to give witness to the one to whom every knee will bow. I and the Father are one. We've dealt with the Elohim. We've dealt with the Michael Heiser syndrome, and we know they were Elohims. We know that Jesus was that Jehovah. We know by his voice all things have been created. When Jesus was arriving and preaching, and eventually the word was to go into the Gentiles, 4:24 is the verse I want people to commit to their memory. God is a spirit, and those who worship him are not suggested, but those who worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. Who is this Messiah? I who speak to you am he. Ladies and gentlemen, it is A beautiful day to be a servant of the Lord. It is a day that the Lord has made. There will come a time when the elect are encompassed about. How did I put it? They'll be doing you a favor by putting you down. They live in a world where they think your decisions may kill them. What you teach embarrasses them too much for them to get along. In the world that's coming, about 50 minutes ago, we went over some statistics that prove your retirement's not going to be there. I'm making my retirement count towards warning you that your retirement is not going to be there. I am spending every penny and going to continue to warn you that your retirement is not going to be there. I am only able to do this because I am prepared to live off the land and have been trained for that all my life. But I was a part of the system that was built up enough to where I could retire in a system that for a little while longer, I'll be able to afford to warn you, you have no hope for your 401k, your 503c(b), your Roth IRA. It's not going to be there. Your cell phone is not going to be there. It's a flat earth nation. The mud flood was Armageddon. Me and my friends are never going to tell you anything else. Why would we? We are trying to prove that we have your best interest at heart. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Goodbye. Nakamain. Hasta la